Welcome back to LexTalk, exploring English and linguistics in Thailand. It's so good to have you back with us for Season 3, Episode 5. We're going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that's especially important for our listeners here in Thailand, educators, parents, anyone who's really into English language learning. But first, a quick reminder to follow and subscribe to LexTalk on all our platforms, our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify. We're at LexTalk Podcast everywhere.
Great to be here. Today we're talking about something that often leads to those aha moments for listeners. High context versus low context communication.
You're right. Sometimes those differences in culture can feel like hidden obstacles for English language learners in Thailand.
Yeah.
It's like you could have perfect grammar and a vocabulary that's amazing, but still run into these situations where communication just feels off.
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it. It's almost like there's this invisible layer of meaning that you need to understand to really get what's being said.
Have you ever been in that situation yourself, like confused by what someone said even though their English sounded completely fine?
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time, especially when you're working with people from different cultural backgrounds. And a lot of times it comes down to these differences in communication styles.
So let's break down these styles a bit. Could you give us a quick explanation of what high context and low context communication actually are?
Sure. So high context communication really depends on shared knowledge, understandings that aren't spoken, and all those subtle nonverbal cues we often don't even think about. It's kind of like dancing with a partner where you both know the steps so well, you don't even need to talk to move together. Low context communication, on the other hand, is more like using a GPS. You get those turn-by-turn directions. It's all about using clear language, being direct, and not leaving much room for different interpretations.
So high context is like reading between the lines, and low context is all about what's actually said out loud.
Exactly. And here in Thailand, we're usually dealing with a high context communication style.
Which makes sense when you think about how much Thai culture values harmony and avoiding conflict.
You got it. Keeping those relationships harmonious is really important, and that often affects how people choose to express themselves.
Like that classic example of a Thai person saying, that might be difficult, instead of just saying no when they're asked to do something they can't.
That's a perfect example. It's all about saving face and making sure everyone feels respected. But you can see how someone from a culture that values direct communication might find that confusing.
Oh, for sure. When I first moved to Thailand, those indirect responses were so confusing. It took me a while to realize that it wasn't about them being evasive or lacking confidence. It was just their cultural way of being considerate.
And that's a key point. It's not that one style is better than the other. They're just different approaches, reflecting the values and norms of those cultures.
So it's more about understanding than judging.
Exactly. And that understanding can be so helpful, especially for educators and parents who are working with English language learners here in Thailand.
Speaking of challenges, I'm curious about how these communication styles affect Thai students learning English. What kind of obstacles do they face?
Well, a common challenge is that Thai learners, with their high context background, often have trouble expressing strong opinions or disagreements directly in English. To them, it can feel confrontational or disrespectful, which makes participating in debates or critical discussions more difficult.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they're dealing with two completely different sets of rules for communication at the same time.
Exactly. And it's not just about opinions. There are other subtle differences that can trip learners up, like the way Thais use silence in conversations.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, in Thai culture, being silent can be a way of showing respect, giving someone time to think, or even just showing you're really listening. But in a low context culture, that silence might be seen as a lack of interest or not understanding.
So a quiet moment can mean totally different things depending on your cultural perspective.
Precisely. And that's where misunderstandings can happen.
And I bet those misunderstandings can really impact a learner's confidence in how well they do.
Absolutely. It's so important for us as educators and communicators to be aware of these cultural differences and approach teaching English with sensitivity and understanding.
I agree completely. So given these challenges, what strategies can we offer to help Thai learners handle these different communication styles and succeed in learning English?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely dig into after a quick recap of what we've talked about so far. We've been exploring the world of high context and low context communication and how those differences can create special challenges for English language learners here in Thailand. But instead of focusing on the problems, let's look at solutions.
I like that positive way of thinking. What are some practical strategies we can use to help Thai learners overcome this communication gap and really excel in English?
Well, one of the best things we can do is to make sure learners are aware of these different communication styles right from the start. Explain what high context and low context mean, and give them clear examples of how these styles show up in daily conversations.
It's like giving them a map to navigate this new cultural landscape.
Exactly. Once they have that awareness, we can start to introduce techniques to help them adapt. For example, role playing is a great tool. Create situations where learners have to express their opinions, ask for things, or even disagree politely in English.
That's a great idea. It gives them a safe place to practice those direct communication skills that might feel uncomfortable at first.
Right. And as they practice, give them feedback and guidance on how to balance clarity with cultural sensitivity.
It's almost like learning a new dance. They need to find the rhythm and the steps that work for them.
I like that analogy. And just like learning anything new, it takes time, patience, and practice.
You mentioned earlier that nonverbal communication is really important in high-context cultures like Thailand. How can we help learners become more sensitive to those subtle cues and avoid misunderstandings?
That's a really important part of intercultural communication. One way is to include activities that focus on those nonverbal cues. For instance, you could show learners pictures or videos of people expressing different emotions and have them talk about the nonverbal signals that show those
Like
emotions.
training them to see and hear those unspoken messages.
You got it. You could also have them watch interactions in real life situations, like a coffee shop or market, and analyze the nonverbal dynamics happening.
So it's about making them more aware of how communication works in different environments.
And that awareness is so important, not just for learners, but for anyone who's interacting with people from different cultures.
Absolutely. It's about building that intercultural competence that helps us connect with others on a deeper level.
You know, this reminds me of something else. It's not just about Thai learners adapting to English communication norms. English speakers interacting with Thais can also benefit from understanding high context communication.
That's true. It's a two-way street. What advice would you give to English speakers who want to communicate more effectively with Thais?
Well, the first thing I'd say is to be patient and observe. Pay close attention to nonverbal cues. Listen carefully to what's being said, and don't be afraid to ask for clarification if something's unclear.
So it's about slowing down, being present, and really paying attention to those subtle signals that might not be directly expressed.
Exactly. It's also good to remember that direct confrontation is usually avoided in Thai culture. So if you need to address a sensitive issue, try to do it in a way that saves face and maintains harmony.
For example, instead of saying you're wrong, it might be better to say something like, I see things a little differently, or maybe we could explore other options.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to get your point across without seeming aggressive or disrespectful.
And that takes practice and being willing to step outside our own cultural comfort zones.
Absolutely. But it's worth it. When we can overcome these communication barriers, we open ourselves up to deeper connections, better understanding, and more fulfilling relationships.
That's a great point. It reminds us that communication isn't just about sharing information. It's about building connections between people.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this interesting discussion, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, especially the educators and parents who are listening.
Oh, I always like a good question to ponder. What is it?
Well, imagine you're in a classroom, or even just chatting with a Thai student, and you feel like communication is a bit strained, like maybe there's a misunderstanding happening.
I've definitely been there. It can be so frustrating for both sides.
Exactly. So in that moment, try to just pause and think. Could it be the cultural context that's influencing how you're both understanding the situation? Are you seeing it from a high context perspective, where those subtle cues and things left unsaid are really important? Or are you looking at it from a low context point of view, where being direct and clear is what matters most?
That's such a great question to ask ourselves. It can really help us change our perspective and approach the situation with more empathy and understanding.
And that can make a huge difference in building stronger connections and making communication more effective.
This conversation has been so insightful. We've really explored those fascinating little details of high context and low context communication and how those cultural differences can have such a big impact on how we interact with each other.
And we've highlighted the specific challenges and opportunities these differences create for English language learners right here in Thailand.
We've also shared some practical ways to bridge that communication gap, focusing on the importance of awareness, being able to adapt, and having empathy.
But most importantly, I think we've emphasized the idea that effective communication isn't about forcing everyone to use the same style, but about developing that intercultural competence so we can connect with people from all different backgrounds.
That's a great way to put it, and I think that message is relevant for everyone, whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just someone who loves language and culture.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you, our wonderful listeners. Have you ever had any cultural misunderstandings because of different communication styles? Tell us your stories and what you've learned in the comments. We always love to hear from you and get those diverse perspectives.
And of course, don't forget to follow LexTalk on all our platforms. Our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Find us at LexTalk Podcast. We can't wait to keep exploring the amazing world of English and linguistics with you.
That's right. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep talking.
Let's talk, let's
Now,
learn.
let's talk.